Hey traders, it's John Fortune here of this week's Weekly Forex Forecast for the 2nd of November to the 6th of November 2020. As always, we're going to start off by looking at the US dollar index and crude oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. And we're also going to be highlighting some of the targets we're going to be looking for in this coming weekend, also for future weeks. So I hope you're having a nice weekend. Let's jump over to the charts and see where the money is this week. We're going to start off, as we always do, with the US dollar index. Now, the first thing to note is that next week is a special week. We do have the US elections on the 3rd of November. That is Tuesday. And this, of course, is a big event for the markets. And it means that on Monday and Tuesday, we're probably not going to see very much in the markets at all. It's more likely that we see very little volatility between Monday and Tuesday. We see a large amount of volatility as the election takes place. And then short-term opportunities start to come into the market, potentially Thursday and Friday. But just bear in mind, it may be difficult trading at all even after the election next week, especially as some states have a number of days after the election to count the ballots. So there is a possibility we see the markets being corrective and indecisive all of next week and potentially even leading into the week following. So just something to bear in mind. It is a unique situation, but we have to be aware of this when we're trading, because it's not going to be an ideal time to start taking huge amounts of risk in the market. You have to remember that ultimately trading is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So looking at the dollar index, well, last week we had a rally to the upside in the dollar, and this was because volatility increased last week. We actually had a reversal week in the dollar index, and this is leading up to the election. As volatility increases, the uncertainty is causing professional money managers to reduce their portfolios, and as they reduce their portfolios, this outflow from the stock market leads to an increase in the value of the US dollar and typically the yen as safe haven assets. So going into next week, of course, we have that major event on the 3rd of November. And as a result, we really have to wait for that event to take place before we can have a strong bias one way or the other on the dollar, because depending on what happens in the US election can determine the next move in the US dollar. So we go into next week with a neutral bias on the US dollar because of the US election. And what we're going to be doing is waiting for the US election to take place. And then we are going to be trading the markets on their own merit, so how they are currently structured, without a bias in the dollar one way or the other. Next, we're going to look at crude oil. Now, last week we reversed to the downside in crude oil. This was a trend reversal, and this was caused by the value of the dollar increasing. This is weighing in on commodities and commodity currencies, and as a result, we do go into next week favouring short positions in crude oil. Any pullback as we're approaching the target of the 33.08, any pullback next week is going to be viewed as an opportunity to look for short positions in crude oil. And if we start to see bearish reversal patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at the 33.08. The next market we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now, we start the week below a key area of broken support from the past at the 1.18420. As a result, we favour short positions in this market next week. Any pullback towards the broken support looking to potentially turn resistance to the 1.18420 is going to be viewed as an opportunity to look for bearish reversal patterns in this area, and we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at the 1.5420. The next market we're going to look at is pound dollar. Now, we are currently structured to the upside in pound dollar, so the pound is showing more strength as opposed to, say, the euro, which we've just looked at. Something to consider if you are looking at euro pound next week. We are, as a result, looking for long positions in this market next week, as long as we do not break down below the 1.28620. Therefore, any reversal in this area next week is going to be viewed as an opportunity to look for long positions in this market. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs, first of all up to the previous high here, roughly at the 1.3180, but also up towards the next key of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 1.3266. The next market we're going to look at is US dollar Japanese yen. Now, the downtrend in US dollar Japanese yen is still intact, but we are in a bit of a tight space here in terms of support and resistance. Therefore, this is really something I'd be interested in after the election, given the volatility that we could see coming into the markets on Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday. But the opportunities in this market we'll be looking at next week are if we can come back and retest the 104.970, this is going to be a place to start to look for bearish reversal patterns. and we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at the 103.99. The next market we're going to look at is Aussie dollar. Now last week we sold off and we came very close to taking out the target set from last week at 0.69790. Since we did not take out this target, what we'd like to see going into next week for anybody who is not already short or did not take any short positions last week, any pullback towards the 0.71250 is going to be viewed once again next week as an opportunity to start to look for bearish reversal patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside, the target set at the 0.6979. And if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key of support to the downside and target 2 at the 0.6837. The next market we're going to look at is New Zealand dollar. Now last week we came up and took out the targets to the pip and we turned from this key area of resistance at 0.6721, and we came back and we retested the key area of support highlighted from last week again almost to the pip at the 0.6600. As a result, going into this week we are looking for further advances to the upside as we do still have the uptrend intact in this market, although again it is starting to lack momentum. This is now a great area to look for bullish reversal patterns, and if we start to break to the upside and we get those bullish reversal patterns next week, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key of resistance to the upside and the target set once again at the 0.6721, and if we can break through here, we're going to look up towards the next key of resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 0.6826. The next market we're going to look at is US dollar Swiss franc. Now last week we had a reversal week to the upside as the dollar index reversed, so very similar to euro dollar as US dollar Swiss franc and euro dollar more or less move inverse to each other. We are looking for further advances as the high probability move this week in this market, so any correction into this area is going to be viewed as an opportunity next week to start to look for bullish reversal patterns, and this would set up an inverse head and shoulders reversal in this market. And if we start to reverse in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key of resistance, the upside and the target set at the 0.9279. The next market we're going to look at is US dollar CAD. Now we start the week above a key area of support at the 1.31480, and as a result we are looking for further advances to the upside in this market next week, especially as we start to see crude oil selling off. This is going to weigh negatively on the Canadian dollar. Any correction back towards the 1.31480 is going to be viewed as a great opportunity to look for bullish reversal patterns. And if we start to break to the upside in this market, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key of resistance, the upside and the target set at the 1.3499. And last but not least, we have gold. Now we did have a reversal to the downside last week in gold as the dollar rallied, so going into this week we do favour short positions in this market. We've already started to correct, but any deeper pullback is going to be a great opportunity to start to look for bearish reversal patterns in this market. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at the 1848.60. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to everybody who does that on a regular basis, and a big thank you to everybody who has subscribed to the channel so far. I want to wish you all the best in your trading next week. Don't forget we have the US elections, and I would expect a lot of volatility in the markets around those elections. So the only thing left to say is have a great week, take care, and don't forget to trade safely.